You know, I asked the pharmacy that does some of the products that I use if they could actually produce saline with a pH of 6.8, 7.1. And they said yes, that they absolutely could, but the problem is the price.
Yes.
Because if you order 100 boxes, the price will be sky high. If you order 10,000, but who of us would? And I think that is something actually that the company should do, because that would really help sales. If you put in the box a little ampoule of controlled pH saline, which would make it pain-free when you inject.
Well, I suspect you've been listening into some of my conversations recently.
No, I haven't. No,
because,
I mean, it's so obvious. It's so obvious, really.
It is to me.
If you can make it pain-free, patients will be coming in.
Perhaps a company can produce a specific.
Ma è quello che dico, che lo mettessero nella boccetta, no? Gli costa zero, ti fa fare le punture senza dolore, i pazienti arrivano dentro subito, no? Il costo loro lo ammortizzerebbero in un secondo e mezzo.
And then we have more control about the use of things, much better if we do that. What of course a lot of people have done is use preserved saline.
We don't have that.
We don't have it.
We don't have it.
You don't have it in Italy?
No,
No.
Is that right? I didn't know.
You mean the stuff with benzoyl?
Yeah.
We don't have it. We don't.
Because I believe that
Or better, it's possible to have.
of
but
course,
it's very
if it's going
difficult
to
now,
pharmacy to compare.
Well, you have, well, you would pay very expensive because it's not commercially available, so you have to have it made for
Yes, of
yourself.
course. Yeah. But there are studies published on the using preserved saline that's quite good. There doesn't
Cuts
seem to
the
be any
pain down.
difference.
Cuts the pain
It does cut the pain down. But I can't determine whether that's because the pH is different or whether the benzyl alcohol's got an anaesthetic effect. Everybody says, oh, it has an anaesthetic effect, but I'm not sure about it.
Okay.
Good debate. These are the Asian toxins that I mentioned this morning that are available. And as I say, there's actually, some of the products are quite good. This product from Korea is quite good. It's building quite a reputation in Korea. In the world of aesthetics as well. They've started to publish on aesthetic use of it. There's nothing wrong with it. This one has some problems. It's licensed in many countries in the world, but it's got gelatin in it, and it's got dextran in it. And I think that is something rather strange, because of course gelatin can give you anaphylactic shock. There are patients out there who've been vaccinated using a vaccine with gelatin in it in the world. Gelatin's common in vaccines in the world, and they have had anaphylactic shock as opposed to ordinary ones. This last one, I believe, this was started by a group of clinicians a few years ago, the company that sells this. And of course here are the fake product that we've seen. And there's lots of these, lots and lots of these. And the kit. So here's toxin, and this is the factory that makes toxin. This is the manufacturing site for toxin. The bacteria.
This is the Clostridium.
This is the Clostridium that makes toxin. And,
which kind of microscope and which color?
I'm sorry?
Which kind of microscope and which kind of coloration?
I think you call this false colour.
Full scale?
False colour.
Colore finto.
But it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it a lovely picture? And on this screen,
Yeah.
it's particularly nice, really nice there. And they actually do grow on material like this. They like vegetables very much, and they like meat very much, and they particularly like dead animals a great deal. They like to grow in dead animals and things. And as they grow, they make this, which is the way they survive in the world. This is the spore. This is the plant seed, the seed of botulinum toxin here. This is it. And that's how it survives in the soil in the world. But it's all bacterial. These are all natural products, natural, totally natural, that are made very easily it's very easy to get botulinum bacteria to make toxin for you. It's
It
not,
seems modern art, Andy Warhol.
I think it's lovely. I think this is a very favourite picture of mine, this one here. And it does look like that, doesn't it? Yeah. So this is the basics of botulinum toxin. These 7 points are the basics. There's nothing more potent than toxin. Botulinum toxin's top of the list. There's absolutely no chemical, no drug, no nerve gas, no other toxin that's more powerful than botulinum toxin.
That's a good message for the press.
That's why I didn't show it this morning. Of course, it's a protein as well. We must never forget it's a protein. And a protein means that it's actually quite fragile. So you can actually destroy it quite easily. Above sort of 60 degrees, it will destroy. It acts very rapidly. It acts on the nervous system, and it's true that once it's bound, which is very quick, very fast, and we now know that toxin after injection probably takes between 5 and 10 minutes to bind and get taken up. Because some new work from Italy has just shown that.
Who did that?
Cesare Montecucco's group
Oh.
in Padova.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's shown that it gets taken up within 5 to 10 minutes now, so we now know.
Now, I think this is an important thing to discuss just a second. What do you mean exactly by being taken up? You mean it gets into the actual target, and so it's not available for other structures anymore? Is that exactly what you mean?
Into the end of the nerve.
Okay,
Yes.
wherever,
Yes.
the gland,
Yes.
the
Yes.
muscle, I mean at the end,
Yes.
okay. So at that point, whatever toxin has got into those places will not be available to go anywhere else. Right?
Not in theory, but there are other things going on with these nerves which we're only just discovering, nothing to do with toxin at all. And I'll try and show you that. No, I'll try and show you that in a little bit. I'll mention it to you what there is, because there's something been discovered that happens between ends of nerves. And there is a possibility that toxin could be shared between the ends of nerves, but no one has shown that yet.
Okay, now once the actual molecule has gotten into its final place and it acts, okay, it blocks the transmission, blah, blah, blah. What actually happens to it? Is it destroyed? Is it metabolized? Does it turn into something else? What happens exactly?
We understand so far that it sits there and works for actually months at a time, doing its job, and then it gets recognized somehow by the body system, and then it will be metabolized, disposed of through the normal pathways. We have a lot of pathways for disposal of junk in our bodies, and there's different ways of doing it. One of them is an enzyme system puts a marker on a junk protein or junk something, and that marker is recognized by something else that then disposes of it. Or there's other ways of doing things, for example, through the liver and what have you. But we know that active toxin does not go from the end of the nerve to the liver. That doesn't happen.
Okay, so would it be correct to say that until the clinical effect is actually there, it's because the molecule is there and it's alive and well and it's working?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So would you say it's correct to say that after about 4 or 5 months, as you said, the molecule is recognized and disposed of?
Slowly and steadily, yes. I think we need to appreciate there is a time effect here. So it isn't like tomorrow all the toxin's going to stop working and the nerve's going to recover. It's a slow process. It isn't like tomorrow all the molecules in the nerve are going to be recognized and disposed of. It's
Okay,
a slow
so-
process.
Well, you know, once upon a time, we used to say you inject and you recommend to your patient that for 2 or 3 days he or she shouldn't live, shouldn't wear makeup, shouldn't wash faces and so on. And now that time lapse has gone becoming reduced, and many people now say 4 to 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours, whatever. Now, what is the true reason why there should be a blackout period immediately?
There isn't. It was everyone's imagination.
Okay, I would like to have data from you on this, because I think this is very important.
The reason is, the real reason is because in the clinical studies, and it doesn't matter what indication, in the clinical studies there was a general belief by everybody back in the 90s that toxin took at least 2 weeks and probably a month to actually give its full effect.
Yeah.
So when you look at the old clinical studies, you will find that probably the first time they ever looked for an effect was at 2 weeks or even a month. The first time point in a lot of studies is actually a month.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
nobody ever looked. So everybody just had this idea, this sort of general belief. And it infected everybody.
Yeah, but my question is actually quite different. I'm asking you this. Do you believe that immediately after injection you should recommend to your patient not to do this,
No,
this,
I
and
think,
for how
I
long?
think there's no effect whatsoever on any of that. And now Cesare's latest paper has shown that if it's taken up between 5 and 10 minutes after injection, I think by the time the patient leaves the surgery, it's probably already bound.
Avete capito?
No. Sì, praticamente che è tutta una leggenda. There are many legends around the botulinum toxin. Yeah.
There is a legend that you must move your muscles lots afterwards.
Yeah.
And there's the one, don't go to the sauna. There's the one that says don't fly on a plane. There's the one that says lie down
like
flat.
mammary implants.
Yeah.
So would you say, for instance, position of the patient during injection has any importance?
The position,
Yeah.
yes, for you, when you inject, what you're most comfortable with.
Okay, not to get a bad back,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah, but I think to me that's the most important.
È la smitizzazione
Sì,
di
sì, ok.
tutto,
Però
What about cold?
Now, of all the things that I've looked
If
at,
you put cold after
there is some published work that shows that toxin works less at lower temperatures.
so no cold after the
So putting that on is actually delaying the toxin effect.
delay in the sense of the first time.
Delaying the toxin effect because you're reducing the temperature. If you keep it normal temperature, now of course you want to reduce the bruising, the swelling, the hematoma, all of that.
Or vasoconstriction.
But actually what you're doing is slowing down the toxin action, I think.
And it lasts the same time? or-
Yes, there's no difference in that at all.
Another question, what do you think about the suggest to the patient to about the intake of zinc if the patient is a low responder
Take a
to
what?
toxin? Zinc.
Zytase. The zytase saga.
Mitologia.
Zytase is a really good.
It's good for the
Zytase is a
makeup.
really good fake product.
yes.
Zytase is illegal. It cannot make the claims it's doing. You cannot make a medical claim for a zinc supplement like that. So the question then is, how many patients do you see with a zinc deficiency that comes into your surgery?
No.
No one. All right?
Well, I wouldn't know.
So that-
I don't check.
Ma chi lo controlla? Dai, ragazzi.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is the toxin would not work, could not work, if it was missing zinc. Zinc is in the toxin molecule, is part of toxin. If it's not there, it doesn't work, doesn't function. So the companies that sell you a product has zinc in it, otherwise it wouldn't be active. But why would you get better effect when you add more zinc orally, not injected zinc, but oral zinc? And the time that oral zinc takes to get to where the top, I mean, come on. So when you actually look at the adverts for Zytase, when you go to the web and you go to YouTube and you look at the adverts for Zytase, you see someone standing there and they're saying, I had a better effect with Zytase than I did without. You know, and that's it, $200, he's happy. Zytase is a fake product, it's a false product, and I've actually just referred them to the UK Medicines Authority because there is a distributor in the UK promoting Zytase for toxin enhancement, and I think it's illegal. So I'm waiting to hear from the UK now.
Some years ago, colleagues of our dermatologists in Venice published a little paper that I believe that very few medical doctors have read, that said that you can find a loss of strength in the muscles very far from the point of injection, and he measured this less of strength with a measurement of potential activity of the muscles. Do you know something about it?
Yeah.
Sorry. We, confidentially, he said to me that he used to do some bottom reduction for hyperhidrosis in some volleyball girls, and these girls can jump as before. Yes,
Interesting.
this is confident.
Yeah.
But
This
he
is
proved,
Sedona.
he proved with the measurement of the potential activity of the. Do you know what something about?
Well, with hyperhidrosis,
Yeah.
you're trying to cover a large area,
Yeah.
so you need a large volume. So you're actually pushing it around in a lot of places. So the chances of it going and having a small effect, a very small effect on some muscles is possible if you're not very targeted. And some people just don't target very well. They don't look correctly for it. We do know, we've known for a long time that if you inject toxin here, you get what we call jitter here. And jitter is an electrical phenomenon of the muscles that is disturbed. Normal signals of the muscles change. So everybody said, so it's going from there to there. But how?
Is there a minimal threshold for jitter? Does it depend on units?
No, it doesn't seem to. So I think
Qualitative, it's not quantitative.
I think jitter and I think those sorts of effects are actually related to the brain readjusting itself after one or two muscles change their activity. So what I mean is, if you have a muscle in spasm, okay, or any muscle, and you relieve that spasm, you drop the brain activity. That's been shown. It's got nothing to do with toxin going to the brain. It's got to do with the brain saying, oh, it's not, oh, I don't need to be as active. And that's been shown with blepharospasm, that's been shown with spasticity, that's been shown with cervical dystonia, that you get this reduction in brain activity. It's got nothing to do with toxin directly, it's to do with the body adjusting. So I think in the case of the hyperhidrosis, I would just say that they're probably having too high a dose, and maybe there is some effect.
Maybe it's just imagination.
And it could also be
But
imagination.
If you look at the doses, I mean, we're not talking about huge things.
If the volleyball team will lose the championship, can do a legal action without against the. Maybe it's good.
Scientist anonymity. No, but I think there are these distant effects, but I think it's to do with, and the word that everybody uses, cerebral plasticity, the plastic effect, the ability of the brain to change. There's a lot of evidence for that, but there is no evidence that toxin makes it happen. It's impossible to get from here to here in a minute. It couldn't happen with a big protein like toxin.
Andy, do you agree that alcoholics are more susceptible to botulinum toxin, that you have to reduce doses, and in what measure? Or is that another myth?
You are concerned about it?
About myself, yes.
I haven't heard anyone make that statement ever. But I wouldn't like to say yes or no to that.
Because that's commonly read in contraindications to botulinum, the usual antibiotics, neurological diseases, and so on.
Yeah.
I come across very often alcoholism. And the reason when it's specified is that supposedly it makes you more sensitive to toxin and you should overdose. You don't know anything about that?
No, I wouldn't be able to make any comment on that
Okay.
at all. It's not a group of patients I've ever looked at.
They don't tell you anyways.
Well, exactly so. Just to tell you that there are 34 types of toxin, not just one or two. These have all been discovered in recent years. Yes, this one here is Italy. There are one or two that exist here in Italy, special ones. You have a very good group of toxin people working in Rome at the
The neurologist.
No, the State Health Authority in Rome has some very good food microbiology people who've done a lot of work on botulinum toxin. And they're very interested in food poisoning botulinum toxins. Here's our molecule. I showed you this earlier today, and again, a picture there. And this is what the bacteria make. So this is a picture that we put together, my colleague and I, in 2008. And this is the toxin in the middle, and it's surrounded by all these other proteins to protect it.
But the subtypes of botulinum toxin, for example, the subtypes of the A botulinum toxin have the same behaviors.
Yes. No.
No.
No. I can't say that. There is growing evidence that they have different potencies. They're very, very closely related. Maybe almost identical twins, a lot of them.
Very interesting.
What subtype we usually use?
A1. A1. And the only other one available is B1. So let's just go back to this one. Yeah, A1. F acts very short, is a very short-acting toxin. It's been used in people on the neck and in other conditions therapeutically. E has been tried and C have been tried here in Italy. Eliopra's group have been very active in trying these other types in humans. A is the most powerful of all the toxins, the A family. And within that A family, there is some evidence that, for example, A2 is more powerful than A1. Some evidence, but it's very limited. So this complex is very important because it's what the bacteria make, and the companies all take that as the starting point for making their products. That's the starting material that we will use for making the products there. This was our best information, put this together. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but now we actually know what it looks like. This is true toxin complex. This is exactly what the bacteria make. This is the real thing. This thing in yellow here is the actual active toxin, and it's just held in position by all these other proteins. That's exactly what it is now. The target is the junction, the neuromuscular junction. I think it's one of the targets. We've got a lot of evidence that other targets are available, but we don't really understand at the moment. Here it is, the neuromuscular junction. And this is a very interesting picture of a neuromuscular junction.
They're fantastic.
This is a human neuromuscular junction, but it's been stained to show different activities. So every single colour on here is something different that's happening in this junction. So we can't be boring and think neuromuscular junction just does one thing. It does a whole 100 different things all at the same time. It sends out lots of neurotransmitters for doing lots of different things. It's a very complicated piece of equipment that we have in ourselves. And of course it's very intimate with the muscle. This is a muscle fibre, actually from a hamster, muscle fibre, and you can see how it's deep, it's embedded into the muscle fibre as well. Here is the nerve, here is the neuromuscular junction, and if you take that piece off, this is what you see underneath. I think these are really nice pictures because you can see here the nerve. Nothing is a straight line in our body, nothing at all. Very complicated. And you can see here the muscle fibres and the neuromuscular junctions on those muscle fibres. So here it is, here's the neuromuscular junction, and here's where toxin works. It blocks the signal from going from one side to the other. Blocks the signal there. And of course, without that signal, these other proteins, these other materials, they can't move and interact, and they don't allow the muscle fibre to contract. What goes on this side is incredibly complicated. You think that the time period for release of that signal across that gap is about 1,000th of a second, 1 millisecond. That's how fast the signal moves around the body. 1979, and this guy Lance Simpson, who's a pharmacologist, he was in his youth then, and he published the first time how toxin interacted with the nerve terminal. And he proposed that it bound, it was taken up, and then a free part worked. 1979, that was before we knew how toxin worked. We didn't know how toxin worked until 1993. So he was way ahead of his time there, and he was 100% correct. Because this is how it works. This is the normal process. In the end of the nerve, we have these little spheres here, and they're filled with acetylcholine, just ready to go. And they end up bound with these proteins. This is the normal nerve ending. And when the time comes, when the millisecond comes, they fuse and they release that neurotransmitter, and then the muscle fibre contracts. So that takes about a millisecond to do that.
But what are the characteristics of the different bodily toxins that make a different onset? Okay.
They have different targets. This is what happens when toxin comes along. Here's one part of the toxin that works, the only part, and it hits, it chews, it's chemical scissors. It cuts.
So the different onset depends on this.
Yes. And the different duration as well. And the different duration. Yeah.
But type A acts in the same on the same product, SNAP25 product.
Yes. Yes. Type C does as well. Type C does as well, and type E does, but type C has two targets. So yes, type A works on that. See, type C has two targets there.
And when we say that the different toxin in the market, the three, Azalur, Vestabel, and are different onset, it's true or not?
I think there is.
No.
I think there's some pretty good evidence, clinical evidence, which I've got some slides on to show you, that there is a different onset. Yeah.